All right, recipe book is getting handed out now. We're ready to dive into a realm of plant alchemy. Yes, a different form of herbalism, as someone, I assume, yourself, like myself, on this path of herbs, becoming your own herbalist, informally, of course. I mean, some of you are maybe studying formally, but I always say, you know, be your own herbalist. Walk the plant path, begin to explore the realm of plant medicines, begin to understand what each of these plants has to offer, and most importantly, begin to learn through experience, right? Consuming these different types of medicines. And as we kind of go down that path, just as much as we're learning about the different types of herbs and their properties, like Labrador tea or rose or ginseng or whatever it is, we also want to explore different mediums of extraction, right? How to consume, methods of consumption. And this is a very unique form of plant medicine, something I came to late. Probably the first form of plant medicine I got into was tea. Right? That's where a lot of us start. Sleepy time chamomile tea or whatever it is. And then we kind of journey and progress and we get a little more finesse with teas. And then maybe we get into tinctures and maybe it's salves. Maybe it's, you name it, right? There's all these different expressions. Essential oils, you know, as another form. And hydrosols can be a co-product of essential oil process, distillation, but they are their own unique form of plant medicine. So we're going to explore what is a hydrosol, what is not a hydrosol, how to make, how to use, and some recipes. So bring your questions. Definitely do. For those online, I see some comments and questions coming through already. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here and sharing. I'll scroll through that and keep on top of that. And yeah, we've got lots for you to kind of experience. The one thing I'm realizing here is, we'll see. I'm hopeful. Right now, this is at 25, almost 30 degrees Celsius. We need to get it to about 90. So we'll see. We've got an hour and a half. Once it reaches that temperature, that's when the magic happens. So this is the tool used to create hydrosols. It's called an alembic. Yeah, and it's beautiful, all copper, hand hammered. It comes from Portugal, from a family that's been doing this for generations. And so this is a very kind of old, ancient art form. It's what you would use to create gin, even. So we'll talk about, yeah, how you can use a copper alembic, the different things that come out of it, different ways to create it. And maybe first and foremost, hydrosols, probably the way that I had come about how to use them was merely just as a spritz, as a room spray. And so that's what we'll do. That's one of their kind of functions. I've got a little diffuser going here as well. Show the folks online. So that is literally just misting, diffusing hydrosol into the air. And we'll kind of get it a little bit more direct. So we're going to experience many different types of plants today. This one here is spruce. So we're going to kind of bring the forest in to the indoors. And yeah, you can think of this like smudging, right? But one of the benefits of smudging with a hydrosol is that you don't have to burn anything. So if someone's kind of sensitive to smoke, or you've got a very sensitive smoke detector, this will help avoid unnecessary calls to the fire department. But it has a very freshening quality as well. So feel free to just kind of, if you want, spray it in the air. You can spray it directly on the face. And this is like internal forest bathing. Inside, we're bringing the forest in. So pass that around. And like I say, we're going to light this room up with so many different aromatics from so many different plants. We'll be, yeah, floating with the plant devas by the end here. So for those of you at home, if you have any hydrosols and you want to join along, just, spritz, energize, clear that air. Yeah, so we're bringing the forest in. And when we talk about smudges, they can clear negative energy, as it said, which, one of my favorite herbalists, Stephen Herod-Buhner, had this question of, how did all these people around the world, come to the conclusion that they did about the plants that they use, that, you know, and especially in light of, you know, kind of the modern analytical, reductionist, scientific mentality that says, well, you can only come to knowledge through science, through the scientific method of, you know, controlling one variable at a time, so on and so forth. And, you know, if we look at indigenous wisdom, that's impossible. That's not how they came to the wisdom that they have. Science has, in fact, through its own methodologies, begun to verify a lot of what indigenous cultures knew, you know, that never had contact with each other. Even such obscure things like sage, right? That it does dispel negative energies. Well, what is that? What does that even mean, right? How did they come to that conclusion, especially by trial and error? And he kind of rather amusingly gives the example of, let's say you sense a negative energy. You want to clear it, right? So first, it's a leap of faith that you would use a plant to begin with, right? To do that. And then what do, right? Do you make a tea? Do you just throw it in the air? Do you burn it, right? Oh, okay, yes, we're going to burn it. Okay, how about some grass? You know, just, no, that didn't do anything. How about some aspen leaves? We'll burn that. No, that didn't do anything, right? You can just imagine like how long through that type of one single variable at a time would we come to that conclusion. Yet people, traditional peoples all around the world came to this conclusion that sage dispels negative energy. And so in asking these cultures, the answer was, well, the plants told us, right? So working with these plants, the spirits of them, the medicine of them in a much deeper way, and coming to that understanding of what are their benefits, their properties. So yes, there's some sort of energetic component that's going on with sage and other, you know, sweetgrass and cedar that has this ability to kind of cleanse the air. Another thing that's happening is the positive and negative ions, which is a bit of a flip, a play. You think, well, positive is positive and negative is negative. Well, in this regard, negative is positive and positive is negative, if you follow what I'm saying. Meaning, you know, a highly positively charged environment would be something like, you know, a stuffy schoolroom or cramped downtown on the C train, right? It's not an environment that like is very inviting energetically. The air is maybe kind of like, you know, there's a lot of maybe electric static charge, that type of thing. The opposite would be a negatively charged environment, which is the beach, which is the forest, which is a waterfall, which is wonderful. Naturally, instinctively, we just want to breathe that in, take that in. And so sage and many of these plants, whether by fire or this kind of aromatic application through sprays, they drop the positive ions out of the air and they increase the negative ions. So you might have experienced that, just kind of spritzing and spraying. Yeah, you want to breathe that in. So we're getting into some of the applications. There's a lot more that we'll get into, but that was the first time that I had, you know, used hydrosols. Was like, okay, well, they're just room sprays. And then second was topical applications. So something like rose. Where do I have rose? That I think has been my longest standing favorite hydrosol. I've got it in this form, but I did bring another one. Where is that? Oh, there it is. Thank you, thank you. I found it. All right, so this one here, this is one that you want to have in two places in the house. You want to have it in the kitchen for some of the recipes that I'll be showing you later, but also the bathroom. Now, it's absolutely amazing. It's perfect to have in the bathroom to spritz your face. And the man that very inspired me about this was Blaine Andrusik. Now, if you've never met Blaine, I mean, he's getting close to 70 now. He's gone through some health challenges the last couple of years. His company has been, you know, passed on. Someone else is running it, so that's good to hear. But, you know, through all those years of being a kind of a leader and a mentor and everything that he's been in the herbal community, one of the things I got from him was the application of rose hydrosol in the face, you know, and even into his kind of later years, it's all, like his skin is almost like a baby's bottom, right? It's so smooth. There's very few wrinkles, and he is a ladies' man. He's a charmer, so he's up on top of his kind of beauty rituals. And the rose hydrosol is one that he uses every day, and it's the idea of after a shower, right? You're in that warm, hot, steamy environment, your pores open up, and a lot of us, of course, will finish with cold, which is a incredible benefit by itself to kind of retighten those pores. But the rose will do that as well. It's like a toner to your skin. It's astringent. Other very interesting thing about the hydrosols is that they naturally have an acidic pH. Now, again, one of those things like, whoa, I thought, alkaline was the good thing. We've got to have alkaline everything. Alkaline water, alkaline food, alkaline this. No, not necessarily, right? So some of the greatest foods, fermented foods, most of them are acidic. Depending on your body system, right? Your whole digestive system is an alternation between acid and alkaline. So your mouth is alkaline, your stomach is acid, your small intestines are alkaline, your large intestines are acid. Your blood, right? Alkaline. So different parts of your body have different pH. Now your skin, what is your skin? It's slightly acidic. The acid mantle, you probably heard that, but most soaps are alkaline. So yes, does a great job of, cleansing bacteria that they can't, wash your hands, so on and so forth. But in the process, we alkalize that, and we'll not only remove the good bacteria along with the bad. I mean, it's just the trade-off, but we can, compromise the acid mantle, making it more alkaline. And hydrosols, being naturally acidic, help reestablish the pH of the skin, as well as some of the herbal properties that the plants that you're using. So rose, it's been known to be one of the great beauty plants that's been used for centuries. And rose hydrosol is a fantastic application of that. So helps really tone the skin. Astringent means it's tightening and toning to those tissues. Your face will smell amazing. Even at the end of the day, you wash your face, you're like, oh, there's that rose again. It's still on there. And it's just a great way to kind of get out the shower, spritz, and get yourself going. So feel free. We'll pass this around and give yourself a little spritz of rose hydrosol. All right. So what is a hydrosol? Well, the definition, I suppose I've already shared a little bit of what it's not. It's not tea. It's not tincture. It's not a salve. It's not an oxymel. It's not all these other forms of plant medicine. It's its own unique form and extraction. And so as the name suggests, hydro meaning water and sol meaning solution. So it's a water solution. What it's also not is water with essential oils added, right? It's definitely not that, actually. Yeah, it's very unique. It's much more complex. It's much more deep than that. If you were just, and there's nothing wrong with essential oils mixed in water. So water is a neutral pH, especially if it's distilled. Like I could literally just be creating distilled water with this machine, and it would come out as a 7 pH, completely neutral. And I could add essential oils to it, and it'd have the benefits of those essential oils in there, and it's amazing, but it's not a hydrosol. It's not a solution of the whole plant. There's another term for it, hydrolate or hydrolat, and that lat is from the French, late, which means milk. There's like a milkiness. So I brought various stages of making the hydrosol, because I don't know how far we'll get in this in the hour and a half we have. It's getting there. It's not a burner that I normally use, so I'm still holding to that it will come to a boil. We'll see the magic happen, but we've got lots else to reference. So at the varying stages of distillation, you can see why it might be called like a hydrolat or hydrolate, like milky, right? It's more than just water. It's more than just the essential oils. There's absolutely essential oils in there. A lot of hydrosols that are on the market are actually just a byproduct of steam distillation. So most essential oils are produced via steam distillation. It would be with this type of apparatus, but then those oils, they rise to the surface and they're naturally skimmed off and sold as just pure essential oil, and then you have all this liquid, this water material that is either just tossed or sold as a hydrosol. So what you want, for the best kind of highest quality is a hydrosol that's been produced specifically just as a hydrosol versus the oil removed. And that's what we're going to be working with today. They are, more subtle, right? Subtle medicine. I wouldn't call it quite, there is a similarity to kind of homeopathics being kind of an energetic and an etheric medicine. I mean, we're working with a distillate, literally. So the process is, and there's a couple of different ways to do this. So in the alembic, we're going to choose a plant. And certain plants have, more affinity to hydrosols than others. Some people describe these as floral waters, but that's not quite accurate because, there's spruce and there's frankincense and there's pine and, roots and barks and leaves, beyond just using flowers. Flowers really lend themselves to hydrosols, but we can put any kind of plant material. I've even done a red-belted polypore, so a medicinal mushroom hydrosol. It was different. It wasn't quite as strong as say, a rose or cedar. So like I say, some substances are better in a still than others. So we can put a bunch of plant material in here. We put water as the base, and then this column here has holes in it so that the steam rises up and you can put plant material in there. So there's a number of different ways to do this. If we can do it, what's called steam distillation, it's technically just water and then plant material in the column. So as the water boils and it steams, it rises up through the plants and it begins to pull and extract its medicinal properties. And it comes down through here into this condenser coil. So in here, the cooling chamber, we've got it filled with ice. And so as that hot steam begins to travel down through the pipe, it hits the cold, it begins to recondense back into liquid. And that is now the hydrosol. So that's a steam distillation. We can also do what's called a hydrodistillation, is where we can take off the column. And the hydrodistillation is the plant material in the water, almost like brewed as a tea. And then that boils, steams off, goes through the condenses, and then comes to back to a water. Now, what I've been doing, depending on the plant, is combining the two. So you do a hydro and a steam distillation, and then you get a nice, good, full extraction. Now, this same piece of equipment can be used to create gin, like I mentioned. So instead of just passing water, they'll pass alcohol. And this is a great example. I'll pass it around. No sips, no sips. I'll mark the side of the jar. Right? And I think it's such a great way to, I mean, this is just perfectly clear, from an alcohol, which is a lower evaporation point than water. So it's very specific. I did get another still to start playing with alcohol distillation, although I shouldn't say that because that's illegal. No, it's so if you put alcohol, like some sort of a mash, right? And it can be any type. Most alcohols are made of corn alcohol or potato. You need some sort of sugar or starch, gets fermented, and then you distill that, and you just got to get it at exact temperature where the water's not boiling, but the alcohol is evaporating. So as that alcohol travels up through the column and through the plants, in juniper, it's most notably, in gin, it's most notably juniper. And there's all kinds of combinations beyond that, but typically it's orange peel and angelica and, so on and so forth. So this one here is from made in Banff, Canada, called the Park Gin. And you can smell all those aromatics, right? So that distillation process, just the steam passing through the plants, it's pulling and extracting. And it's a beautiful thing. So you can sense how it's a little bit more subtle, but there's a potency to it, right? It's more of in that etheric realm. So some people relate it to, homeopathy. Some people relate it to almost like a microdose, of plants and herbs in that way. But there's definitely a potency, and we all have different sensitivities to different forms of plant medicine. All right. Yeah. So we're doing a combination, and today I'm doing a type of hydrosol I've never made before. So this would be a kind of the maiden voyage of doing Labrador tea. And what you can do when you're making hydrosols is it's best to use fresh plant material, though sometimes, I mean, there's just no, I'm not sure if I will ever make a fresh rose hydrosol. I mean, I hope I will one day, but can you imagine getting enough rose petals to fill that, right? I mean, maybe I'm gonna have to scale things down and use something smaller, but I can certainly access plenty of dried. So when I make the rose hydrosol, I make it with dried rose petals. And there's still a wonderful, fantastic potency as you experienced, but there's something a little bit different, a little bit special when you're using fresh plant material, because you're actually, you know, the water that's in that living plant is what is getting steamed out and extracted. This here, you know, though Labrador tea is available year-round and can be harvested as a fresh plant, today we're just using some dried Labrador tea, and this is one that's kind of one of our local neighbors and plant allies. So Labrador tea, we'll definitely begin to smell it as it begins to distill, but even making a nice cup of tea, this one has incredible aromatics. It's quite a highly prized essential oil, and I know the hydrosol is going to be a good one. It's one of my favorite herbs. It's very good for the respiratory system. It's a good adrenal tonic. It's quite restorative to the body, and it can be, you know, kind of calming and relaxing, but not sedative in that way. So you can drink it in the morning, and one of the names for, you know, Labrador tea, Indian tea was another name for it. The indigenous people, this is one of the plants that they used the most of, very commonly, because it was accessible year round. It's really good for coughs and colds, sore throats, very soothing in that way as well. So we'll just pass that nice thing around. And that one's one that could also be smoked as well, but that was a part of the kinnikinnick put into the peace pipe. All right. So I got into this actually, you know, having used hydrosols here and there in different applications. Next, after aromatically, topically, then I started to add them into recipes. So this rose fudge and some of the drinks that we make, and I'll do up a little drink as well. This one here contains lavender hydrosol. So it's a little like nice, soft, delicate, delicious chocolate fudge with a bit of lavender. So just that floral note brought forward from the lavender hydrosol. And maybe as we pass that around, we can also pass around the lavender. So if you want to give yourself a little spritz, you can. Lavender is very, very potent. The essential oil is, to me, in recipes, you know, almost too potent. So with the lavender hydrosol, it's a little bit softer, and you don't, yeah, you can just add that. You don't need to have as much volume to kind of, control the potency of the lavender oil. Yeah, there we go. Nice little spritz. Okay, we got some questions here. Okay, so Jade asks, can you use any kind of rose petals? Is there a better one? And what about rose hips? Awesome question. So here, for any type of plant and subsequent varieties, you know, like cinnamon, when you use different types of cinnamon, they have different properties, different qualities. You could absolutely make a cinnamon hydrosol, and the what they call the true cinnamon or sweet cinnamon. It's got a softer, sweeter, property to it. It's a little bit less harsh and spicy than some of the other cinnamons. So it's, you know, when selecting what type of rose, it just comes down to knowing your different types and different varieties And so this one is a Damascus Red Rose. I've done pink roses. And for the average person, the average sniffer, they probably wouldn't be able to tell the difference. And not to say that I would either, you know, rose is rose in that regard. Some might say that there's slight differences between those two varieties, but very, very similar. And you would use them the same as well. All right. What do you think of that? Nice little fudge. Yeah. Yeah. Again, it's just kind of aromatic. It's ethereal. It's very just like, yeah, perfect. Hey. Yeah, the lavender, yeah, nicely lingers. So again, that's in your recipe booklet if you want to try that out. Maybe the next we'll do, this is one that a lot of folks were enjoying during the pandemic, which, so I've got, let's see how much here. That's about half. All right, so now we'll kind of talk about consuming them and using them in different recipes. So the most basic form here is just adding them to your water. And like I mentioned, a lot of folks are really into doing this, adding either pine or star anise into their water. And yeah, creates a lovely, lovely, lovely flavored hydro aromatic water. And the ratios, you can play with this, but you know, I've got a couple of books references here that you guys can check out at any time. This one I've probably would recommend the most. It's called Hydrosols, The Next Aromatherapy by Susan Caddy. And she's got kind of an internal, you know, therapeutic protocols, because these, just like herbs can be used for anything. Obviously, this is an expression of plant medicine. So, you know, what could you use them for? Literally anything, right? So headaches, nosebleeds, sinus congestion, earaches, sore throats, colds and flus, allergies, smoker's cough, bronchitis, lack of appetite, excess appetite, vomiting. Well, apparently vomiting, 5 mils of aromatic hydrosol cinnamon bark diluted in 200 mils of water, and then you just take a little by the teaspoon. That's her prescription, right? So there's lots of depth you can get into for very specific conditions, and her kind of general recommendation for using them therapeutically in that way is 2 tablespoons per liter, and then just drink that throughout the day. You may not need 2 tablespoons in terms of like getting the right flavors. You can also do it that way. And then she recommends 3 weeks on, 1 week off, just to kind of really get into a plant and work with its medicine as a hydrosol in a more kind of a therapeutic way. And then if you had something maybe a little bit more acute, right, like an earache, then there'll be a different application that way. But just kind of the general, and one of the reasons why folks were into star anise and pine in particular over these last 2 years is they contain a high amount of what's called shikimic acid. Now, shikimic acid is what they make the pharmaceutical Tamiflu from. So pharmaceutical medicine, Tamiflu, or let's go to the natural, right? Pine, star anise. Star anise is the highest in that property. Pine comes in a good second. Spruce is just up there as well. So it's a great natural cold and flu remedy. It's antiviral, all these properties. So to have just a little bit in your water bottle, you know, so you're going hiking or throughout the day, a lot of people felt it just gave them that little bit of extra protection. So I've got, let's say, about 2 liters here. And this is all very intuitive. It doesn't have to be so specific here. So it's about 2 liters. And we're going to go with 1, 2, 3, 4-ish for our recipe. All right, we'll give that a stir, and then we'll get you to help serve this up. All right. That was the star anise. Yeah. So, you know, kind of licorice notes as well. Maybe we'll, yeah. Okay, we'll just pass that around, and then you can just kind of stick your nose in there to get the smell of it, and in just a short moment, you'll get a nice taste of it as well. We've got an amazing couple of chefs in the kitchen right now who are just incredible. They're just so inspired. They're coming up with all kinds of different ideas. And the one guy, Alex, he's worked at all the top restaurants around town, like River Cafe and so on and so forth. And he's been dreaming up, using the Star Anise Hydrosol as like a marinade for different dishes. So don't be surprised if something like that comes out soon. All right. Let me just give it a quick taste. Okay, yeah, it's perfect. And you can make it as strong or as light as you want. And if you want to think of it, homeopathically, then it's that idea of like that dilution in the water. This one's just the Star Anise. Yeah, just by itself. Yeah, but when you're making your own water, fennel water, rose water, I mean, any of these things are very nice in your water bottle, just a little splash and then consume throughout the day. And you can even do blends as well. I'm not sure about pine and Star Anise as a combo, but fennel would certainly complement, or spruce and mint, anything like that would be really good.
Is it also sort of I don't want to say disinfectant, but sort of?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I'll just repeat the question. So a lot of people will use the hydrosols as a disinfectant. Absolutely. So we talked about it, again, in the air, aromatically, it'll clear and cleanse the air, can clear and cleanse things topically. Lavenders, many people will use lavender essential oil, straight on the skin. Hydrosol just be a little bit gentler, but still just as effective. Straight on a cut. You can even do it as a compress. You could even just put some on a cloth and then cleanse your face with it. And then also works internally as well. You're getting those antimicrobial properties. Vivian, she's works here, and she started the company Apotheke, and so she's Greek by descent in her family. All the relatives are there, and so she's started this business Apotheke, where she's been bringing in Mediterranean herbs and spices from Mount Olympus in Greece, and so she's got oregano and sage and all these different types. And so I've been doing some hydrosols for her. And one of the ways that she uses the oregano is as a mouthwash, as well as like sterilizing your toothbrush, right? So just like, and then just sit it on the counter kind of thing. So yeah, absolutely. It's very kind of cleansing and has those disinfected properties.
I use that oregano spray in my car, like when I,
Oh, okay. All right. So, for sure. Yeah. So Alyssa's just mentioning that, can be used, almost like a hand or a sanitizer, right? So got the spray in her car and it smells amazing for sure. And, those ones lend themselves, like the Star Anise, to the right type of culinary application as well. Yeah. Oh, okay. So Heather asks, what is the shelf life of hydrosols? Really good question. I have some in my home that are literally, I'm slowly working through the bottle. They have to be at least 6 years old. So if they're, were prepared well, sealed up, away from direct sunlight, they can last several years. I would say the ideal, the optimal is within a year or two. But it depends on the quality and the maker, making sure that there's no cross-contamination. Obviously, like a bottle that has an open lid, there is always that potential that maybe there's some cross-contamination that could happen every time you open it. But yeah, it should keep itself very well. If it's diluted, right? So some essential oil, or sorry, some hydrosols are literally just water with essential oils added, or they're diluted, or they're not quite as strong. And I'll talk about, maybe I'll just show it right now. This is the beginning of the batch. This is the end of the batch. You can tell one is a little bit more potent than the other, and there's a spectrum in between. So if it doesn't have as much of the the plant chemistry in it, then it might have it's likely going to have a shorter shelf life. Now, in the European Union, they mandate that you have to add alcohol as a preservative, which just completely changes the nature of the hydrosol. And that is to just maintain and increase shelf life. So Yeah, it's weird. Yeah. So, and those I wouldn't be using them in the same way at all, right? If they're like 11 or 12% alcohol, it's a very different product that you're working with. Yeah. For sure. Yeah. So the the very first night that I made pine hydrosol, I was just so enamored with it. Like the smell, and it's like, oh, tasting it, like I must have drank probably a cup, by the end of the night. And literally that night, as I was sleeping, I could smell it. It was like oozing out of every pore of my body. And was that too much? I don't know. I mean, if it felt good, it probably was a little bit too much. But I didn't experience any negative reaction, as it were. Yeah, so I would say it depends on what it is. And then of course, pine, as well as some of these others, spruce similarly might have contraindication, like if you're pregnant or you're wanting to conceive, and that's not due to the hydrosol, that's just due to the nature of its herbal action and its property. It can be used to abort a baby or in large amounts, right? So yeah, but they're very kind of safe in that regard, that you can use a lot. Different than essential oils being so concentrated, they could tend to burn. Like you'd never want to consume oregano oil straight, but diluted, you'd be okay. All right. So Joanne asks, what volume of hydrosol do you get in one batch? So really good question. And maybe this is where we'll kind of talk about here. So it depends on, how much water you add and ultimately how much plant material you add. And it's kind of like a tea when you do the, let's say you're making chaga tea and you're doing a nice strong decoction. The first batch is like super dark and dank. And then you're like, oh, I can add some more water and I can rebrew it again. But then the second one's a little bit lighter. And then you're like, oh, I'll do it again. And the third one is like, it's a little bit, light. And fourth, like, actually, I'm not really getting anything out of this. Or choose any herb, right? Like mint. So it is with the hydrosols. And really, it just becomes about, observing through look, through smell. And you can see, in this first half gallon, that there's a lot in there. There's a certain potency, just even in opening that up. So these are all cedar hydrosol that I did very recently. And so that was the first half gallon. But what's interesting is that you'll get different properties at different phases of the distillation. So this one here, which was the first kind of proper gallon, has like, you can see the oil sitting on top. So whereas this one I don't, right? There's actually literally like cedar oil has that kind of, it almost looks like the bark. It has that kind of deep reddy brown hue to it. So not in the first part, but definitely in the second, not so much in the third. And then this, the fourth, I would say that this is kind of done, right? So if we take that tea analogy, super strong, pretty good, pretty weak. And depending on the maker, they might just kind of combine them all together, or maybe they'll say, you know what, I'm just going to combine this, or I'm just going to combine this for the potency. And that really just comes down to, gauging it. So this is I think it's a 30 liter capacity. So if I fill that up, I can't expect that I'm going to get 30 liters out the other end. It's always going to be, much less than that. Maybe it's 60% of that. It just depends on how much plant material that I put in there. And like peppermint's not going to be as strong as long as chaga or reishi, depending on what you're distilling as well. Cool. Keep those good questions coming. All right. Okay, so here's some other good questions. So Patty asks, do you have to store in the refrigerator or just a dark cupboard? So some people say, refrigerate is best, especially for long-term shelf life. That being said, I mean, I do have some in my home. I've had them for 5 or 6 years. They've never been in the fridge. I can, smell them, taste them. They're still good. So yeah, totally up to you. Dark bottles are nice to kind of help just maybe like diffuse that light, so it isn't quite so direct. Oh, wow. Okay. Somebody here's got a beautiful rose that's close to 10 years old, kept in the fridge. Yeah. All right. And then Wendy asked, do you do a cleaning run through your still between each different hydrosol distillation? You can. So depending on the plant that we're putting through, so something like pine, something like rose, mint even, it's very light, very aromatic. I find that even just kind of, rinsing it will clear through a lot of those aromatics without having to really get in there. Where something a little bit more, say, resinous, like frankincense. I absolutely love, love, love frankincense. We should pass this around because it's probably one of my favorites. But the absolute worst to make and worst to clean. Yeah, I've only done one batch of frankincense. I don't know if this will happen again, but for some reason, all of it just, normally it's just steam that travels up the column and through the pipe. Well, this was all the frankincense bits and resin, and it just caked the whole inside. It was getting spit out into the bottle. It was just, yeah, not a good scene. So that took me a long time to clean and to get that out, so I could then do something lighter and delicate like rose again. All right, frankincense is one of those good ones that you can also use on the face. Very wonderful topically, but maybe the way that I use it the most is kind of for oral care. So if you guys want to try, you can take 1 or 2 squirts, just put that in your mouth. And then I'll just do a nice little swish with it. You can be the end of like you just brush your teeth and you want to leave that on your palate, or you're going out and you want a nice little like taste of frankincense. Yeah, it sits very well on the palate. So yeah, Cassidy's asking, would photosensitivity be a concern like it is with essential oils? Yes, absolutely. So that's why, generally dark bottle, wouldn't be right in the windowsill. We'll keep it away from direct sunlight. Yeah, good question. All right. Yeah, so I got into this actually during the pandemic, the whole kind of shutdown, whatever. I'm not really sure. Yeah, actually, I know what led to it. I visited my friend Amanda out in Vernon. So she owns Pranic Forest, and so she's been doing this distillation and alchemy for a couple of years. And I saw her do it. It's like, that's I want to do that. So yeah, it became another art craft form that I just wanted to get into and explore. And yeah, ever since that first batch of pine, I've been hooked and doing it lots. So typically I've got it set up in my backyard, and I've got a propane burner that this sits on, and I've got a system. Instead of constantly feeding the cooling chamber ice, I'll have a cooler full of water. And over the winter, it made it very easy because there was snow, there was ice. I just kept kind of filling that up and then circulating the cold water, because as this heats up, this gets quite hot. So you need to constantly trying to keep it cool. And today my goal is just to kind of keep adding ice and then taking out the hot water as it gets warm. But I'm not sure with this burner if we'll get there. We might have to shift it over to speed it up. This countertop one, it's on max, but I mean, it's almost 40. We're about halfway to go on that to see the magic happen. But you can kind of begin to smell a little bit of aroma coming out from it, but we'll see. We haven't given up hope yet. All right, what did you think of the star anise water? Nice. Yeah, it's good. It's subtle. It's refreshing. And again, it's just kind of bringing in that plant medicine into your body throughout the day. Again, you can drink it all in one shot. It's kind of more of a dose, or just spread it out throughout the day and have that throughout the week. All right, next recipe I wanted to show you was, I call this the 3-tree lemonade, or 3-tree iced tea lemonade. Although afterwards I was like, wait a minute, it's actually got 4 trees in it if we use maple syrup. So this will be the 4-tree lemonade. So we use maple as our sweetener. We got a little bit of lime juice. So do let's times everything by 4 here. So we've got lime. And then we're going to do a little bit of pine, spruce, and Douglas fir. So a little holy trinity of the forest here. Okay. And where are those ones? Okay, so so I've got a teaspoon of each, or I mean, you can work with just one if you have just one. So there's some pine. Where do we got some spruce? Oh no, do you want to grab the Douglas fir that's outside? Yeah. That's one I didn't bring in yet. There we are. Add in the spruce. Yeah, cedar is not one that you would typically consume because it has in its essential oil a compound known as thujone, which can be toxic. And yeah, you typically wouldn't consume it. Yeah, cedar can be used in tea blends and that type of thing, but in a hydrosol, it's a little bit more concentrated and it's hard to regulate how much you're consuming. If it were just a little splash, I wouldn't worry about it, but generally it's not one that is consumed. It's one that's fantastic as, you know, a topical and an aromatic spray. All right, so we got that. Maybe we'll pass around the cedar while I'm getting that one ready. Yeah, we didn't do cedar yet, did we? No, okay. Oh, it's one of my favorites. Here we are. All right, now we're gonna go. So 1 teaspoon of lime, 1 teaspoon each of pine, spruce, and Douglas fir. Depending on your flavor preference, I said teaspoon to a tablespoon of honey. And I'm gonna go with some maple syrup. Okay, I realize I'm gonna have my ratios probably not strong enough, so we'll double everything up. When I predid the recipe, it was perfect. So have no fear, you can just follow that, and I'm just winging it here, just to make sure we get a nice sample for everybody. And then the spruce. All right. So yeah, 3 tree iced tea. This is our internal forest bathing, drinking in the forest. And what else? Oh yeah, so serve over ice, and you can do sparkling water or still. And of course, this could be, if you wanted, you could add a little bit of gin to it, you know? Yeah, so making cocktails, mocktails, hydrosols are amazing for that. Sample cup. Let's see how I did. Yeah, it's pretty good. Let's make sure we got enough. Okay. All right, you want to serve that up for everyone? How did the last amount go? Did you go through the entire amount? Not quite. Okay, so hopefully that'll be perfect to get everybody a taste.
Malcolm, can you talk again? about how essential oils are made, hydrosol.
Yeah, really good question. Okay, so just clarifying the difference between how essential oils are made and hydrosols are made. So they're actually made the exact same way in this, either typically it is a steam distillation, so just water at the bottom, steam is passed through the plants that picks up those compounds. It still is kind of recondensed down, but then the main thing is then they'll kind of separate off the essential oils, and then just the water will be left to the side. So, you can tell, just on this one, on the cedar, there's just a thin layer on top. So that's at the beginning. So there's a huge amount of hydrosol that is essentially as a byproduct to extracting those essential oils. But there's still a lot that's dissolved in there that doesn't separate. They're just getting that top part that doesn't dissolve into the water.
So if you're purchasing essential oils and hydrosol, you kind of want to know who made it and how they work.
Right.
At the right side, you leave the essential
I leave the essential oils in. Yeah. I've never separated it off. Yeah, for sure. Okay. That's good, hey? So imagine that with a little bit of gin. Or if you want to make it a mojito, then you could add in the mint, right? A little splash of mint. We'll pass around the mint. Woo. So this one, mint as a herb has refrigerant qualities, right? So it's literally very cooling. So this is a perfect spray. The lavender and the rose are very similar in that way as well. But the mint on a hot day, topically, and even for sunburns, that type of thing, just kind of mist it on where if that skin is just too sensitive. But it's also a great thing to just perky right up. Rosemary, another one. You can get a rosemary hydrosol, or even just, sniffing the essential oil. You're doing work, you're studying. You want to just kind of increase that mental alertness and focus. The hydrosols are great for that. So rosemary and mint would be very nice in this drink, as well as topically. So say it again, in terms of potency, hydrosols are not as potent as, or yeah, rephrase your question. Oh, really good question. Okay, yeah, so essential oils are, right, so essential oils are much more concentrated. Yeah, for sure. So yeah, they're a great, hydrosols are a great way to ingest the essential oils. Yeah, because it's contained, within that water solution. Yeah. Okay. Well, things are happening. Oh, it's starting to drip now. It is starting to drip, so we're getting there. Smells amazing. Okay, wow. Suddenly, it all of a sudden just jumped to 80. So we're in the money. The magic's happening. Yeah, the vibes. I was sweating there for a little bit, going, uh-oh. All right. So typically, what I'll do, like you're boiling a tea, once you got it to a boil, I'll bring it down, and I want it hovering, depending on the plant. I've 80 degrees Celsius, or what would be like 175 Fahrenheit. But really what I'm looking for is, I know it's at that temperature once that steam is coming up and it's starting to come down and condense. So it literally just happens, just a kind of a drip at a time. So those online won't be able to see it or smell it, unfortunately, but everybody here. So now it started, this will just go, and it takes several hours actually. So, drips at a time to do that many gallons. And again, it's just monitoring. This is how I do it anyways, just by look, by smell, and then, okay, cut it off when I feel like it's done in terms of potency. But yeah, this will be Labrador Tea. This will be a new one. Oh yeah, really good question. So yeah, let's talk about the alembics. I've certainly inspired, just as I was inspired, many people to buy them. So it's a company out of Portugal, Alembic, and I think their website is called copper-alembic.com, and you can get all different shapes and sizes. You can get, the essential oil, extractors. You can even get them specifically for, making alcohol, and all the tools required there. So depending on the size that you get, I think they go from 5 liters to 40 liters. And it's, I think on the low end is like $300, on the high end up to like 12 or 1500. Oh, good question. Yeah, alembic. So ALEMBIC. Alembic. I know you can't see that online, but alembic. Yeah. Okay. So Bonnie's got a great question. Which hydrosols can be used for focus? I mentioned 2 specifically, mint and rosemary. Rosemary is incredible. Yeah. And lemon. Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. Totally. All right. And that's the thing. I mean, that's once you get into this, like whether you're making it, right? But primarily, though theoretically, like doing a gin, right? It's a combination of different herbs, right? You got your juniper, you got your angelica, this, that, the next. Typically when I'm making them, I will do just single plant extracts and then combine them afterwards. So you can absolutely, but one could, combine them ahead of time and then do a distillation of multi plants at the same time. There's no right, there's no wrong, but typically I'll do a single plant and then begin to play and mix afterwards. Yeah. Have not done so yet, but yeah. There's, let me just kind of run off a list. I mean, essentially anything that you see as an essential oil, there's usually always a corresponding hydrosol. Unless, so citrus, they're typically pressed instead of steam distilled. And then there's some essential oils that are CO2 extraction, which wouldn't have. But if it's steam distilled, then you would have a resulting hydrosol. And okay, yeah. So through here, just to kind of give, I mean, this is a lifetime of like, creating these and storing these and, collecting them. So we've got angelica root, artemisia, balsam fir, basil, bay laurel, black currant, black spruce, calamus roost, cardamom pod, cedarwood, cinnamon bark, cinnamon leaf, clary sage, clementine, coriander, cilantro, cornflower. I mean, yeah, huge long list. Juniper berry, of course, is in there. Oregano, peppermint, rock rose, chamomile, St. John's wort, Scotch pine. Yeah, very common, again, that you see as essential oils. Robert Rogers, based out of Edmonton, he wrote this book, Sense of Wonder, Oils and Waters, and a little bit about essential oils, mostly about hydrosols. And this was all specific to plants of Alberta. That it was a special research project, and they created hydrosols, again, even out of mushrooms, and they documented the chemical compounds found in it, as well as some of the applications. So sweet licorice lichens are even in there. Prickly lettuce they did. Yeah, maitake mushroom, hen of the woods. They even did a honey hydrosol as well. So, all right. Rose hips. Yeah, that actually came up as a question earlier. Rose hips. I believe so. I think that's one of those ones that, some plants or parts of the plants lend themselves better to distillation, like the flowers. You could definitely throw them in there though. Yeah. Haven't done it yet, but maybe one day. All right. Okay, thanks. Yeah, just a couple questions about some of the books. Yeah, typing those in. I'll type them in at the end. Maybe I'll send it in the email, the names of the books. And then Carolyn's asking recommendation where to buy a still. I'll put that in the follow-up email as well, so everyone's got access to that. Okay, so let's keep going through some recipes. We got some more to showcase how to use this. That's keeping on going. All right, one of our elixirs. There's a few that we add the Hydrosols into, but the hot chocolate heart on, which is just like rose and chocolate, and it's adding in that rose hydrosol that just amazing, just elevates that drink. Absolutely lovely. You tried the reishi lavender bliss truffles. You got the recipe there. Herbal gummies. This is one that is quite nice. So this one features rose again, but it's a hibiscus tea with black currant powder and rose hydrosol. So we'll pass that around. And gelatin. So if you're vegetarian or vegan, pass it along. But hydrosols are amazing in gummies. So I wanted to just kind of showcase making another type right here. So this is one of my favorite teas from Harmonic Arts. It used to be called green tea, but I think there was a confusion of like, oh, green tea, does it have green tea in it? Anyways, he did a whole rebrand and he called it Sea Breeze. Uplifting blend of coastal herbs and seaweed. So it's spearmint, nettle leaf, lemon balm, bull kelp, mugwort, cedar tips, and horsetail. Absolute favorite tea from Harmonic Arts. And I love making it into gummies. So that's what we're gonna do for our next little demo. All right, so I'm gonna do a double batch from what the recipe says. So it's 2 cups of liquid. And so you're gonna combine, tea, juice, hydrosol, anything like that as your flavor base. So 1 cup of liquid, which will include a hydrosol. So depending on what you're using. So that one that you just tasted was hibiscus tea combined with rose hydrosol. And you can do any proportion depending on the strength that you want. This one is going to be the Sea Breeze tea. And then we're going to combine it with a little bit of mint and I don't know, any of the other ones. Maybe I'll add just a splash of that cedar just to kind of punch up the cedar flavor from the tea. Sure, we can add some spruce too. And that coastal forest, wonderful goodness. There we are. And then we add a bit of sweetener. So your choice. We're going to add some honey here, kind of sweeten it. This is honey that's at the elixir bar. We actually dilute it with a little bit of water, so it's just easy to work with. But one can use undiluted honey, but it's just going to be easy for our purposes here. So to taste, got about a 1/4 cup there. And then we add in, well, at this stage, we want to taste it, make sure it's good. And I forgot to mention, when you're doing the hydrosol waters, and my wife just reminded me this morning, I was like, oh, I should have prepared that. It was a couple years ago, we came across a food blog that had done these hydrosol popsicles. And they're absolutely gorgeous because they froze all kind of frosted, and so they put in flower petals into the popsicles, or you could do it with ice cubes, and just the hydrosol gave it that kind of cloudy, mystical kind of quality with the flowers in it. So that's a nice idea, either as ice cubes or popsicles itself. All right, let's have a little taste. Oh, that's good. All right, and then we add in the gelatin, and that is about 1/3 cup. Give us, and you can do more or less depending on that consistency of how firm you want it. So if you're going for a really hard gummy, you could add more, or if you want something a little bit softer, then you add something less. And you want to make sure it's well mixed. Some more ice. Thank you. Thank you. So just behind us, since I mentioned that still started to drip, we're maybe at half a cup of distillate that's come out so far. So it's a long, slow process. It's just often how good things are made, right? If you're doing it indoors, yeah, lights up the room, makes it nice and aromatic. I'll even smell it outdoors too. But nothing beats just getting your nose right up to it though. Yeah. Oh, really good question. Okay, so yeah, so the frequency of adding ice to the cooling chamber really just comes down to monitoring like how hot this will get. Typically, obviously, like it's going to be, you know, hot up top first, and yeah, you'll see it starting to steam, and yeah. So the main thing is just always keep it cool. So it's you, yeah, that's right. So you know, if this does not remain cold and it gets too hot, steam, yes, you'll lose the liquid. It'll begin to boil off. But the main thing even before that is if it's no longer cooling it, then this thing is just shooting out steam, and you're just essentially losing all that hydrosol for it to, yeah, you're losing it as steam. So yeah, you always want to keep it cold, and it's pretty easy to kind of monitor and gauge just first by the look, you know, is there some steam coming up, and as well just by touch. So right now, super cold. We don't have to worry about that.
That tube that comes down just goes straight through that pod.
So really good question. Yeah. So as it enters in, and you guys can come up and check this out after, is it actually, it spirals around? Yeah. So there's probably a good couple of feet of pipe that it's going through within this chamber versus just straight down. So you want lots of surface area for it to hit the cold and then recondense. Yeah. Okay, so there's our next kind of jelly that's going on. This one here, the colder it gets, the more it will set and firm up. So you'd have it at this point, you put it into your little molds, and yeah, any kind of shape you want, put it in the fridge and it will set. But I think just for now, just so you can taste this, we'll pass these little spoons around, and then you can. Oh, that's amazing. That's delicious. I think you're gonna like it. So just imagine that as like a nice firm gummy, all set, ready to go. But that's how easy it is to make that. So we'll pass around the spoons, and then pass that around and just dip in and go. All right. One other, and there's so many recipe ideas. It was just one of those things of, okay, which do I select and put in? I have far less experience doing savory dishes, though one absolutely could if you wanted to add in oregano or sage or star anise or these kinds of things into, you know, your cooking, be it a broth, be it a salad dressing, anything works. It's all game. Most of my, you know, are more on the kind of the drinks, the treats, that type of thing. One other recipe I've been doing this for years is making my own toothpaste. Yeah, so I talked about, you know, just taking your frankincense and using it as a mouthwash, or a freshener or a cleanser, that type of thing. You can, you know, combine different hydrosols into one bottle as one complete spray, or you can make a little toothpaste. Now, you can do that a number of different ways. I use clay. I mean, we sell a clay toothpaste out there, and it's clay and it's water and it's baking soda and it's salt and it's essential oils. And it's like, well, I can make that. And you can too. So you can get bentonite clay, you know, get something kind of soft. You don't want anything coarse. You want something that would be, you know, food grade or food safe in that regard. And 2 parts clay powder and to 1 part liquid. And so that liquid can be hydrosol. It can be colloidal silver, right? Some of those have silver in them as well. And so this one here is just literally 2 parts clay to 1 part phenyl hydrosol. That's it. That's all it is. Of course, you could do it much fancier, more elaborate if you wanted. And So maybe for this one, if you want to, it's worth trying. You can just take the back of your spoon, put it in your mouth. It's very dry, of course, but you'll get the idea. Imagine brushing your teeth with that. It's it works really well.
Your bentonite clay is edible.
Yeah. So the bentonite clay is edible. Yeah, food grade. Yeah, totally. Geophagy. That's one of those things that the eating of earth. That maybe only during pregnancy some people might have those types of cravings, but it's a natural part of our diet. Birds do it. All other kinds of mammals do it, and so we can utilize it as a nice, gentle abrasive, a cleanser on our teeth. And the great thing about this type of toothpaste, is you actually want to swallow it afterwards, because clay has detoxifying properties to it. Yeah, adsorption, it binds on. Catherine, she says she certainly ate dirt as a kid. Yeah. All right. Heather asked, will you have the toothpaste recipe? Yes, the toothpaste recipe is in the booklet as well. Could you use a water distiller to make hydrosols? That's a good question. I'm not sure. I think you could. I've a friend of mine, he almost gave it to me, but I was like, I just don't want it. It was, I don't think there was anything wrong with it. I just didn't need another gadget. Anyways, he had one of these stainless steel countertop, water distillers, because that's what he drank, was distilled water. And I remember looking at it, and I think where you put in the water to then distill, I think in that chamber you could put a bunch of herbs in it. And so it would be like a hydro distillation. It's very small, that chamber, and then you have to keep filling it up. So I think it would work. I'm just trying to think in my head. But yeah, it would be different. So yeah. All right. Any other questions? Just type them in there. We're getting near the end. So within the booklet, I've just kind of highlighted some of the properties of some of the plants that we've been talking about in their hydrosol form. And maybe I'll kind of close and finish with some notes. I've compiled various sources of writings about hydrosols. So we'll kind of finish with that. So it says, hydrosols are mystical cellular water, an angel's kiss, a divine mist, a therapeutic plant-derived vibrant water. They're simply known as, they're simply a water hydro solution sol. They're known as flower waters, plant waters, spirit waters, sun waters, medicine waters, or even toners. Water loves to bond, and the result is these water-loving molecules carry the plant's medicine in it. They hold the plant's phytochemical properties, the textured and tangible scent, and the intrinsic spark of their being. They are more than mere toners for the skin. They are language for the more subtle senses. These aromatic waters call for you to remember the wild. When we commune in nature, our senses are awakened as the fresh breath of pine, mountain laurel, fir trees, and the physiochemistry of all invites us to dance. They remind you of the life-bonding pheromones and deliciousness, which elicits a sense of greater connection. These bonding waters embrace our skin, and we carry the waft of nature with us. We naturally smell beautiful in this exchange. The freshness itself is inspiring and soothing to the nervous system. Hydrosols have the power to change your life. Water's wisdom teaches us how to remember, hold, and release, flow, receive when needed, and how to find the path of least resistance. Here is its inherent therapeutics. Plant waters affect the physical vitality of our skin and awaken our emotional and psychological well-being. They can refine pores, balance sebum, and encourage healthy pH. They are cleansing, hydrating, cooling, and wound healing. A grounding refreshment for both your skin and your limbic system, aka your biopsychology. They're also a lovely fragrance, deodorant, a room scent, a linen spritz. They are physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual support. Technically, you know, they're colloidal suspensions of essential oils and water-soluble components obtained by steam distillation or hydrodistillation. They're not simply essential oils added to water, as we talked about. It is a complete process of condensation and alchemy, lifting into the ether and coming back down together as one new reformed being. There's a science and a magic mystery to it all. Sometimes hydrosols are the co-product of essential oil process, but we do not separate the essential oils from the waters in their final form. Distillation is a process of alchemy in which the animating life force of a plant is transferred into the water, enhanced with the active energy of the plant, the core of the heart of the alchemist. Hydrosols aren't like perfumes that can disrupt your endocrine system and hormone balance. Hydrosols are natural and safe for everyone. The dimensions of enjoyment will keep on growing. A hydrosol starts as a seed. It absorbs the sun and drinks the rain. It frolics with the wind, sings with the birds, sleeps with the moon. When harvest arrives, it dances with the alembic to become one with fire and water. It rises as vapor and returns as liquid. It's a poem by Anne Harmon. So, all right. I hope you've enjoyed and been inspired and lit up with the magic of hydrosols. So I've turned many people on to these, even getting their own alembic. So I'll put that in the notes that we send out with you. And if you want to try anything more or smell bottles or jars, definitely come up here and check things out. And then if you want to get any hydrosols, we've got a special for those online between now and next Sunday night. Just type in Hydro 20 for 20% off. And then anything that you want to get today is the same. So yeah, thanks so much for coming. And let me know if you got any other questions. And again, to take in any more of the hydrosols, I think we might have sampled them all. Oh, I have a yarrow one that we didn't taste. That one's quite subtle. And yeah, there we are. So thanks everybody for those online as well. I'll send out the recording, and thanks for you guys for being here in person. Yeah. All right. Yeah, you're welcome. I'm curious, did anybody have a favorite hydrosol? Tea? Oh yeah, the iced tea. Nice. And these gummies are pretty good, hey? The ones that were still forming. All right. So maybe you just want to watch the chair. So yeah, so that's still nice and cool. So we're maybe at about a cup now. So far. So of course, piping and everything here is very, very hot, but everything down here is so cold. We don't have to worry about that. Okay, so yeah, cups just to the back. Yeah, so some people will refer to kids. That's what I'll use. Still. So, Yeah, it doesn't really work to, it's not quite stable water, No, this is a larger. I think it's 5 years. Yeah, so this is third.
Yes, it's funny because I was researching. Right, everything in it. So
No, I'm going to. It's just kind of keep